What happens when someone closes a beautiful garden to everyone else? Can a garden lose its spring? And can one small act of kindness change a selfish heart forever? Today, you will learn English through a beautiful and meaningful story. The story is called The Selfish Giant. It was written by Oscar Wilde. This version is told in easy, slow English for beginners. Listen carefully and enjoy the story. You do not need to understand every word. Just relax, follow the meaning, and let the English enter your mind naturally. At the end, we will review useful vocabulary, answer simple questions, and practice important sentences together. Before we begin, please like this video and subscribe to Verbajoy English. Now take a slow breath, get comfortable, and let us begin. Once upon a time, there was a giant. A giant is a person in a story who is much bigger and taller than an ordinary person. This giant owned a very beautiful garden. The garden was large and peaceful. Soft green grass covered the ground. Bright flowers grew everywhere. There were red flowers, yellow flowers, blue flowers, and small white flowers. 12 peach trees stood around the garden. In spring, the trees were covered with pink and white blossoms. A blossom is a flower that grows on a tree. In summer, the leaves were fresh and green. In autumn, the trees produced sweet, delicious peaches. Many birds lived in the garden. They sat on the branches and sang beautiful songs. A branch is one of the long parts that grows from the main body of a tree. The birds sang so sweetly that people sometimes stopped walking just to listen. Every afternoon, when school finished, the local children came to the garden. They ran across the soft grass. They played games under the trees. Some children climbed the branches. Other children sat together and talked. Their laughter filled the air. The children loved the garden. They believed it was the most wonderful place in the world. At that time, the giant was not at home. He had gone to visit an old friend. He stayed with his friend for 7 years. During those 7 years, the children continued to visit the garden. They did not break the trees. They did not damage the flowers. They only played, laughed, and enjoyed the peaceful place. One day, the giant decided to return home. When he arrived, he heard happy voices outside. He heard children laughing. He heard birds singing. The giant walked into the garden. He saw children running on the grass and climbing the trees. His face became angry. His voice became loud. "What are you doing in my garden?" he shouted. "This garden belongs to me. No one else is allowed to play here." The children stopped playing. They looked at the giant with frightened eyes. Then the giant ordered them to leave. The children quickly ran away. The garden suddenly became quiet. There was no laughter. There were no happy voices. But the giant did not care. He was selfish. A selfish person thinks mostly about himself or herself and does not want to share with others. The giant wanted to keep the entire garden for himself. The next day, he built a high wall around it. A wall is a strong structure made of stone or bricks. It separates one place from another. The wall was so high that the children could not climb over it. The giant also placed a sign near the entrance. The sign said, "Keep out." The giant looked at the wall and smiled. "Now the garden is mine alone," he thought. But outside the wall, the children were very sad. They had nowhere pleasant to play. They tried to play on the road, but it was hard, dusty, and full of stones. There was no soft grass. There were no shady trees. There were no sweet bird songs. Children often walked beside the wall and remembered the beautiful garden. "How happy we were there," they said. Soon, winter arrived. Snow covered the houses, roads, and fields. The air became cold. The trees lost their leaves. Everyone waited patiently for spring. After several months, the weather changed. Spring returned to the country. Green leaves appeared on the trees. Flowers pushed through the ground. Birds began to sing again. But spring did not enter the giant's garden. Inside the high wall, the ground was still covered with snow. The trees remained empty. No flowers appeared. No birds sang. The garden stayed cold, white, and silent. The snow was happy to remain there. The cold north wind was happy too. The wind rushed through the empty branches and made terrible sounds around the giant's house. A powerful storm joined them. It struck the windows and shook the roof. The giant sat beside his window and looked outside. Why is spring so late? He wondered. I hope the warm weather comes soon. But the days passed. Spring did not come. Summer did not come. In autumn, other gardens were full of fruit. But the giant's trees gave him nothing. The garden remained trapped in winter. The giant did not understand why. He did not know that the garden had become cold because he had sent the children away. Without their laughter, the garden had lost its joy. Without their happiness, it had lost its life. One morning, the giant was lying in bed. Suddenly, he heard a beautiful sound outside. The sound was soft and sweet. At first, the giant thought someone was playing music. Then he realized it was a little bird singing in the garden. He had not heard a bird there for a very long time. The song sounded like the most beautiful music in the world. At the same moment, the north wind stopped blowing. The storm became quiet. A lovely smell entered through the open window. The giant sat up quickly. Perhaps spring has finally returned, he said. He got out of bed and looked through the window. What he saw surprised him. The children had discovered a small hole in the wall. They had climbed through the hole and entered the garden. There was a child sitting in almost every tree. The trees were happy to see the children again. Green leaves opened on their branches. Beautiful flowers appeared. Birds flew through the warm air and sang joyfully. Small flowers looked up through the grass. Almost the whole garden was alive again. But one corner was still covered with snow. In that cold corner stood a very small boy. The boy was trying to climb a tree, but the lowest branch was too high for him. He reached up with both hands. He jumped again and again, but he could not touch the branch. The little boy began to cry. The tree wanted to help him. It lowered its branches as far as it could, but the boy was still too small. The giant watched from his window. Something changed inside his heart. For the first time, he understood the truth. Spring did not come because I sent the children away, he said quietly. I have been selfish and unkind. I kept the garden for myself, but now it is cold and empty. The giant felt deeply sorry. He decided to help the little boy. Then he would break down the wall and welcome all the children back. The giant walked slowly downstairs. He opened the front door very quietly. Then he stepped into the garden. When the children saw him, they remembered his angry voice. They became frightened and ran away through the hole. As soon as they left, winter returned. The cold wind began to blow again, but the little boy did not run away. His eyes were full of tears, so he did not see the giant coming. The giant moved gently toward him. He did not want to frighten the child. He carefully lifted the little boy with both hands. Then he placed him on a branch of the tree. At once, something wonderful happened. The snow disappeared. The ice melted. Green leaves opened across the tree. Beautiful blossoms covered every branch. Birds flew down and began to sing. The little boy smiled. He put his arms around the giant's neck and kissed him. The giant's heart filled with warmth. The other children were watching from outside the wall. They saw the giant helping the little boy. They understood that he was no longer angry. They ran back into the garden. As soon as they returned, spring returned with them. The entire garden became green, warm, and beautiful. The giant smiled at the children. "This garden belongs to you too," he said. "You may come here and play every day." Then the giant took a large hammer and broke down the wall. Stone by stone, the wall fell. Later that morning, people walked past the garden on their way to work. They were amazed. They saw the giant playing happily with the children. The garden looked more beautiful than ever. It was filled with green trees, colorful flowers, singing birds, and joyful laughter. From that day, the giant was no longer selfish. Every afternoon, the children came to the garden after school. The giant watched them play. He helped the smaller children climb the trees. He listened to their laughter. Their happiness became his happiness. But the giant often looked for the little boy
They
he
did
had
not
helped.
know.
They said they had never seen him
because
before
one
that
simple
day. Kiss had opened his heart. The giant hoped the little boy would
asked
return.
the other
children where the boy lived. Every afternoon, he looked around the garden, but the child did not come back. Many years passed. The giant grew old and weak. He could no longer run with the children. He could no longer climb or play. Instead, he sat in a large chair beneath a tree and watched them. He smiled as they ran across the grass. "I have many beautiful flowers," he thought. "But the children are the most beautiful flowers of all." The giant finally understood that a beautiful place means little when there is no one with whom to share it. One winter morning, the giant woke and looked out of his window. Snow covered the garden. The trees were white, and the air was cold. But the giant was not sad. He knew that winter was only resting. He knew spring would return. Then he noticed something unusual in one corner of the garden. One tree was covered with beautiful white flowers. Its branches shone like gold. Silver fruit hung between the leaves. Under the tree stood the little boy. The giant's heart filled with joy. He had waited many years to see the child again. Although he was old and weak, he hurried downstairs. He walked into the garden as quickly as he could. When he came close to the boy, he suddenly stopped. There were small marks on the child's hands and feet. They looked like wounds. A wound is a place where the body has been hurt or cut. The giant became angry. "Who hurt you?" he asked. "Tell me, and I will protect you." But the little boy told him not to be angry. "These are marks of love," he said. The giant did not fully understand. Then the boy reminded him of the day when the giant had lifted him into the tree. "Many years ago, you allowed me to play in your garden," the child said. "Today, I have returned to take you to my garden. My garden is peaceful and beautiful, and it has no winter." Peaceful means quiet, calm, and free from fear. Later that afternoon, the children came to play after school. They found the old giant lying peacefully. Beneath the tree, his body was covered with beautiful white flowers. The giant had left the cold winter garden and gone with the little boy to a place of peace. The children never forgot him. They remembered that he had once been selfish, but they also remembered that he had understood his mistake and changed. He had broken down the wall around his garden. More importantly, he had broken down the wall around his heart. Now, let us think about the meaning of this story. At first, the giant believed that keeping everything for himself would make him happy. But when he closed the garden, he also closed his heart. The garden became cold because love and laughter had disappeared. When the children returned, spring returned with them. Their happiness brought warmth and life back into the garden. The story teaches us that real happiness does not come from owning more. It comes from sharing what we have. It comes from kindness, friendship, and love. The story also teaches us that people can change. The giant made a bad choice, but he later accepted that he was wrong. He did not only say sorry, he showed that he was sorry through his actions. He helped the little boy, he broke down the wall, and he welcomed the children back. Kindness can bring warmth to cold places, sharing, can turn loneliness into friendship, and an open heart can change an entire life. Now, let us review some useful words from the story. Giant. A giant is a very large person in a story. Selfish. Selfish means caring only about yourself and not wanting to share. Garden. A garden is a place where flowers, trees, and other plants grow. Branch. A branch is a part of a tree that grows out from its main body. Blossom. A blossom is a flower that grows on a tree. Wall. A wall is a strong structure that separates one place from another. Frightened. Frightened means afraid or scared. Wound. A wound is an injury or cut on the body. Peaceful. Peaceful means calm, quiet, and free from fear. Kindness. Kindness means treating other people with care and love. Now, answer these simple questions. You can pause the video after each question if you need more time. Question 1. Who owned the beautiful garden? The giant owned the beautiful garden. Question 2. Why did the children love the garden? They loved it because it had soft grass, beautiful flowers, fruit trees, and singing birds. Question 3. What did the giant build around the garden? He built a high wall around the garden. Question 4. Why did spring not enter the giant's garden? Spring did not enter because the giant had sent the children away. Question 5. Who could not climb the tree? A very small boy could not climb the tree. Question 6. How did the giant help the boy? He gently lifted the boy and placed him in the tree. Question 7. What happened when the children returned? Spring returned, and the garden became warm and beautiful again. Question 8. What did the giant do to show that he had changed? He broke down the wall and welcomed the children into his garden. Excellent work. Now, let us practice speaking. Listen to each sentence, then repeat it aloud. The garden was full of beautiful flowers. The garden was full of beautiful flowers. The children played happily under the trees. The children played happily under the trees. The giant did not want to share his garden. The giant did not want to share his garden without the children. The garden became cold and empty. Without the children, the garden became cold and empty. The giant understood that he had been selfish. The giant understood that he had been selfish. He gently helped the little boy. Gently helped the little boy. The giant broke down the wall. The giant broke down the wall. Kindness brought spring back to the garden. Kindness brought spring back to the garden. Real happiness comes from sharing with others. Real happiness comes from sharing with others. An open heart can change an entire life. An open heart can change an entire life. Wonderful. You have listened to a complete English story. You have learned new vocabulary. You have checked your understanding and you have practiced speaking aloud. Now, tell me in the comments. What is the most important lesson you learned from the selfish giant? Write one simple sentence in English. For example, real happiness comes from sharing. If this story helped you, please like the video and subscribe to VerbaJoy English. Share this lesson with another English learner, then listen to the story again tomorrow. The second time, you will understand more words and notice more details. Keep listening, keep repeating, keep speaking, and keep learning with joy. This is VerbaJoy English, where you learn English and speak with joy. Thank you for listening. I will see you in the next lesson.